So, thanks Shane for being here with me today. I would like to know a little bit about yourself. Tell us your story, how you got to Switzerland and started your own business here, and a little bit more details about what you're doing.
Okay, well, I can try. So I suppose I should say hello to everyone who's watching this first of all. Um, it's an interesting journey, really. It's one that I kind of hadn't imagined. I didn't really see it coming, but it happened. And it happened, when did it happen? 4 years ago, really, is when it started. And I came over to Switzerland on a bit of a lifestyle choice, wanting a bit of adventure and a new place to live and things like that. And previously I'd been working in the banking sector in learning and development. And I came over here on a project that I kind of convinced my old employers into giving me. And that kind of lasted for 6 months. And the whole aim of that project, I suppose, really for me, having a different aim from the kind of the business was establishing myself over here, finding the contacts, networking, and finally finding myself a job and a life in Switzerland. So that's kind of how it started, and it began quite well, actually. I was quite successful in the project that I was doing for them. I made lots of contacts with the banks who I was working with. And at the end of the contract, I ended up working with Julius Baer. And again, that was on another project. And the problem I quite quickly found was actually that my language skills, at the time I didn't speak any German, kind of held me back a little bit. I was only useful in certain projects, and when those projects were over, it was kind of very nice working with you, but goodbye. Mm-hmm. And of course, at the same time, we're talking about 3 years ago now, the banking sector was shrinking, and the banking sector hasn't really recovered from that, and so the availability of jobs out there was small. So the opportunities that were open to me were also small, and so I started to ask about, network some more, and found myself with a few more offers that came out of my network. Now, there is what I might call a problem with me, or you could also call it a blessing. I don't know which one it is sometimes. And that is, I have kind of a strong, how would you describe it? It's kind of a strong internal compass, mm-hmm. and also a sensitive heart. And that means that I'm not very good at doing things, or I can't do things that don't really fit with my personality or fit with my beliefs, or don't suit me. If it doesn't inspire me, I'm not in. I can't get excited for something just for the fact of earning money, for example. And so I was offered some kind of good jobs, promised me lots of money, but they just didn't interest me. They didn't light my fire. And that's when I kind of thought, well, what else can I do? What would I really like to do? And that's when I kind of, this whole idea, this of becoming an entrepreneur, I suppose, being self-employed, began. And I kind of thought, I was in a situation, there was opportunities in the market. To explain, the kind of, I was in the banking sector, and the kind of Swiss banks at that time, the Swiss Banking Association, was looking at the level of training and competency in the marketplace, and basically they decided that it wasn't enough, and they were doing a review of that. And this has been going across Europe at the time, and it already happened in the UK, and I'd been part of that. That was part of my kind of expertise. I was out advising banks on the new standards, how they could adapt to them, and how they could improve their systems, and kind of consulting them on kind of upgrading and developing their systems to be in line with the new regulations. So I thought, well, great, this expertise doesn't exist in Switzerland. Maybe I can jump on the back of this. Well, that's when I started my first business, and that was basically training consultancy, and that didn't really work out. So things don't always go as planned. So I suppose this is a message for anyone who wants to become an entrepreneur. Things don't go as planned, and things didn't go as planned that day. I ended up setting up the business, expecting lots of work to come in, and then the powers that be, the Swiss Bank Association, kind of through bureaucracy and other things, the kind of regulations and the projects that they were working on all got shelved. And so that kind of fell away, and suddenly the whole kind of purpose of my business fell away with it. So I was in this situation where I was essentially finding myself without interested customers, and I had to do something new. So plan B. And my plan B at the time was English teaching. It kind of kept me with income as the other side fell apart, if you like. And this is where I saw my kind of second opportunity. And that was, well, you know, English teaching is enjoyable, it's nice, I really like building those relationships with people. But for me, there was still something missing in it, and it's the challenge of it and was not great enough, and the depth of it and things like that. But what I realized is, whilst I was English teaching, was I was able to kind of help people with much more than just words. Because of this background in learning and development, because of this background having been in business, having set up businesses on behalf of my previous employer, having negotiated contracts, worked with partners, worked with regulators and all these things, I kind of had much more experience that I could provide to my clients. And it kind of developed into what it is now, or the idea began to develop, which is communication skills with English. So people would come to me and say, look, I've got a presentation, I've got an interview, I've got a negotiation coming up, and it's in English, and I'm a bit stressed about that. Can you help me? And so that's kind of the foundation of the business, helping people, non-native speakers of English, who have to speak English in a business environment, speak English confidently and effectively. So contrary to what you might think, the main basis of that is not actually English training. It's quite different. English training is very important, and that is part of the parcel. But actually, I focus much more on helping people deal with the anxiety that comes around that. I mean, I know it's like I speak German now, and you know, if you walk into an interview, negotiation, or whatever in German, my old heart flutters. And I know that's the same for many people who are not used to speaking a foreign language. There's a whole sense of an uncertainty that you have, an added level of uncertainty that you don't have in your own language. So it's kind of helping people deal with that. And the other side, it's helping them become more effective in their communication skills. And those communication skills can be used in any language. And the premise of that really is that you can have someone who speaks wonderful English. They might speak it perfectly, but they might not really be able to get their message across. They can't use the language effectively. You can have someone who doesn't speak very well, actually. They might not have very good grammar, but if they've got the confidence, the charm, and the additional communication skills that come across in their mannerisms, the way they talk, the way they use their body, the way they use their eyes, all these other things, you can still get a really powerful message, even if the words are completely wrong.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I just quickly dive a bit in there? One thing that I just noticed from what you said is, so in the beginning it was basically all about teaching English. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but then what you realize is by doing the work, by talking to people, you realize the need. You realize the need that is there, not just for the English, but much more importantly for the communication skills, for the effective communication, for the presentation, for not just that, but also for building confidence in a foreign language. So you went into business basically to teach English, but then you developed it much further because you realized what people's needs really are, what your target market's needs really are by actually talking to them, right?
Yeah, you could describe it like that. I mean, going into business, I didn't go into business as an English teacher, really. That was like a fallback plan. You know, originally it was just keeping me busy whilst I kind of decided what came next. And And the next step, the real business, came out of that.
Yep.
Because, you know, I mean, I worked for other people, teaching English for other schools and things like that. And it wasn't until I saw that need that I kind of launched the business.
Exactly. Okay. Because
yeah, sorry.
Because that's what I see over and over again. I mean, everywhere, not just in the big companies, but everywhere. It's usually people start doing something, but that's not where they end up with. What they end up with. They usually start with something, and then they learn more about their target market, their clients, and eventually they adapt to what their target market really needs, but also bring in that thing that they're really passionate about. So I find that combination between what they're really excited about and what their clients actually desperately want to buy.
Yeah, and that's happened to me, and that's actually, you know, you've identified maybe the first step of that, but that's continued more and more because I've continued to refine my services and my business, and it's lots of little steps where I've said, okay, well, you know, perhaps negotiation skills aren't the most popular thing that people want to talk about. They actually want to deal with their presentation skills. Or I've even done stuff, I mean, I've ended up doing things on personal branding, career development, which were completely outside the original purpose of the business. And, you know, even with the business's name, which is Powerful Professional English, you know, how does personal branding and career development come into that? It was just a case of that's what people were asking me to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know, that's another lesson I learned now is the name. You know, the name almost now is a bit. It doesn't quite fit the package sometimes because I mean I do all sorts of things now. Cultural communication skills is a big part of my business now, and it's something that you know is driven partly by my passion, but also by people's interests. And you know, almost that doesn't fit underneath the wrapper very well either, but it's what people want.
Yep.
And it's just developed like that, and you know, it is what people want, but it's also a combination of what I'm passionate about. So if you're passionate about something, it's very easy to push it, to drive it, to deliver a very good service on it as well. You know, I can't get excited about some subjects, as I said before, and if you can't get excited about it, you probably don't do a very good job delivering it.
Exactly. Yeah. Completely agree. Yeah.
So, you know, that's what I do those things. Sorry.
Okay. So tell me a little bit about your business development. So how do you go out there and actually get the clients? Because I think that's that's something that is at the heart of every single one of us business owners, because that's what we need to do as our main activity. So how do you go about that? How do you go out there in the world and get new clients?
Well, in advance, you sent me some questions, and one of those questions was, how was the first few months? And the first few months, actually, for me, were really enjoyable and very exciting, because that was for me the kind of analysis, the study, the research of the market, to try and then build and develop the company and design the company. And that stuff is, you know, somewhere that I personally think I kind of do very well and excel. I'm quite analytical, and I definitely enjoy that part. The next step was going out to find the clients. And that's where I must say, personally, I probably don't do as well as I do in other areas. It's not one of my fortes, let's say, especially in a foreign country. I mean, I worked as a client relationship manager before in the UK, and that was part of my role, business development. And I did very well at that, actually, but because I knew the law of the land, I knew where to go, I knew how to deal with the people, but now I'm in a completely different place and a completely different culture. And that, for me, creates some barriers. And also there's the language as well. I do speak German now, and I do go to networking events and do that in German. But that is one of the kind of the biggest challenges. And so you have to start that network afresh if you're in a country. And that's been one of the real challenges for me. So how do I do it now? I can't promise you that I'm the most successful and best person to follow this on. This is how I do it, and this is how it's developed. So I suppose I first started going out after individual clients because it's where I felt most confident, dealing with individuals, people who would be the direct customers. Much easier to build empathy, to persuade, and you can display your skills straight away. And so I did that, and that's through networking. I attend things like Zing lunches. I sit around a table, we chat and discuss things, talk about business, whatever else. And sometimes I'll get a phone call from someone in that group asking me, I know someone who wants to improve their English, has a presentation coming up or something like that. However, I realized more and more that for my business to be successful, it's not the individuals that I need to target, it's the businesses. And I had an existing business network from the banking sector. And now that was a challenge for me to go and approach them, because I had been working with them before. They knew me already, but they knew me with the name of a very big and very well-renowned business behind me. So it wasn't Shane Norton, it was Shane Norton and the big company. So the company was effectively opening the door. Well, this time it was Shane Norton. And I found that much more challenging. Also from a self kind of belief angle, because you can kind of, when you've got a very big name behind you, you can almost kind of blag it, if you don't feel completely confident in the role. And you've got processes, and you've got all these other things that have been laid down by the large company. But when you're on your own, you're the person who's designed those processes, you're the person whose products you're selling. And so actually I found that much more challenging. And especially one of the things that I perhaps have, a mistake I made in the beginning was perhaps not committing 100% to my business, but instead keeping an eye or one finger in my old business and not allowing the new business to really take for my full concentration. So that means that those banking contacts of mine who were very good contacts, I kind of kept away from my business a little bit, because they were my escape route should it all go horribly wrong. And actually, now I realize I would be much more successful if I had just gone to them in the first place and said, look, this is what I'm doing. Let's see how we can work together. But there was a certain confidence lacking, and not only confidence, unwillingness to take that huge risk. And that huge risk is very difficult. But anyway, things have begun to continue to progress, and I hope I'm not going on too much here now.
No, I got a few questions that I want to go into, but just finish up.
Okay, so just one thing now then. And now I'm really at this point where the challenge is finding the right people.
Yeah.
Because the banking sector is one place, but actually the right contacts for me exist mostly in the large international companies. And the banking sector, in Switzerland, we only have really two big international companies. So going to meet those, that's a difficult thing. Where do you find those specific people? So I look for things like trade shows. I look within my existing network to find someone who can recommend me, put me forward, an event we can go to where we can build a relationship without talking about doing business.
Okay.
And that's what I find much more effective than calling someone up on the phone and bullying them into the business.
Absolutely, yes. So a question that I have, do you have a very specific target market in place? And who is that target market that you're going after?
So my target market now, again, this is something that's continued to evolve and develop. My target market the primary target market is really in these large companies, HR, training managers from large international companies with a large international workforce that have got the resources and the need to spend money on improving their staff's communication in English.
Okay.
And that's, you know, I found myself with successes in targeting those people. I've worked recently with ADB and HSBC, and a few other names in the industry. But I mean, at the same time, I also work with individuals, and whilst they're not my primary market, they're also a pleasure because they normally come with different needs, and it's one-to-one. It's intimate, it's private, and the results we get in that way are much more visual and easy to see. And so I get pleasure from both, but my real target market is those large international companies.
Okay, good. All right, so I mean, you basically have two different kind of target markets you go after. I think different target markets for different interests. It feels to me that you have a bigger passion for the individuals, because you can connect easier with them. It's easier to build a relationship with them. On the other hand, the corporations or the corporate clients are probably much more interesting for the big growth, right?
Yeah, that's true. I would struggle to say that I'm more passionate about either of them. I think they have different challenges. Like, I really enjoy working with individuals and the kind of the work that we do together. It's very nice. But actually, the work with the large internationals is it's challenging in a different way, and so therefore it's exciting in a different way. And I would say it's probably more exciting than working with the individuals. So one has the kind of, I suppose, the intimate relationship, and one has the excitement of the larger, greater challenge. So
okay. So let's quickly focus. If you don't mind, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. Let's quickly focus on the corporate clients. Is there any specific industry that you're targeting?
No, I haven't. I mean, it has to be large multinationals. So in Switzerland, we know where they are. They're Basel for the pharmaceutical companies. It's also engineering companies, obviously dotted around the place. Other than that, we have things like Kraft Foods and Nestle, those kind of multinationals. And so they're the main clients of mine. So really the category is, are they big enough? Are they international enough to need my services?
Okay.
So that limits it.
Okay. Well, the reason I'm asking is what I've seen over and over again. I mean, I've built my business over the past 1.5 years as well. So what I've seen in myself and with a lot of my clients that I worked with who are business owners is that if they have a very specific target market in place, like industry specific or profession specific, the more specific that target market is, the easier it is for them to find them and engage with them. Because what it does is, first of all, your target market tells you exactly where to find them. That's the whole idea of having one. Because if you have a very specific niche market, let's say you have large international private banks, very specific, in Switzerland, very specific. You know, I'm not saying there are millions there, but I'm just saying it's a very specific market. If you have that specific market, you know exactly where to find them. You know exactly where the people hang out, what events, in which associations, for example, as well. It's much easier for you to get there. And not just that, but one incredibly important thing that most people forget and that I neglected for a long time is to find not just the decision makers at the organizations, but actually the referral partners. Basically people who serve the same target market as you do, but with different services. I'll give you an example. If you say you have large international private banks as a target market, and they So what are they looking for in terms of what you can provide? They're probably looking for workshops, they're probably looking for seminars, maybe one-on-one coaching, coaching consulting for their entire workforce. They're looking for many different things. They're maybe looking for online learning packages. So they're looking for many different things. And there are probably only a few things that you provide. And there are other things that other service professionals provide or other companies provide. So what if you partner up with one of these companies who are already serving your target market? So they already have your target market, they already serve them, they already have these clients, and you can maybe come in there and they can introduce you to your target market. That's usually a way that is much easier to get in front of these decision makers, especially if you deal with corporate clients. And that, most of my clients deal with corporate clients. So it's a very effective way. So just to give you some inputs.
Yeah, I mean, I do have one partner firm that I work with, and we work very much in that way, and that's happened to us both ways now. I've referred work onto him, and he's referred work onto myself, and that's, you know, that certainly works. But I hear what you're saying, and I kind of, as you're talking, I can think of a few other people that I should perhaps be speaking to a little bit more.
Okay, very good. You know, because there are many opportunities out there if you know exactly who your target market is, if you have it very specifically defined. So the more specific you go, the easier it is to come up with these ideas. Because usually in the beginning, when you have to define a target market, the problem is always, or people always have that idea that if I go too specific, I limit myself. If I go too specific, they're not going to be enough. I mean, that's at least the problem that I had in the beginning. I thought, well, if I go too specific, there are probably not going to be enough people for me to make an income. But in fact, the more specific you go, the more your target market knows that you are dedicated to them. You're probably not going to buy your Porsche at Aldi, right? If you're going to go out and buy a new Porsche, you're going to buy it at the reseller who is dedicated to selling that specific car and to serving you as their target market. So just, you know, to bounce off some ideas there.
Sure. Excuse me. I mean, I think you're alluding to something I kind of, hopefully I mentioned in my first little ramble too, and that was one of the things I wanted to get across in this is one of the things I've certainly found is that all the mistakes I've made in my business have been by being afraid and by running after the money. So by offering, for example, too many services, by approaching too many clients, by even, as I said before, about keeping my kind of foot in the other business. You know, I was basically trying to spread my risk, if you like, and hope that someone would buy one of my services so that I had at least some income coming in somewhere. And I see more and more how that doesn't help me. And more I continue to redefine what it is I do to make it more and more specific, more and more specialized. And, you know, it's becoming more and more successful because of that. But it's not an easy process.
Yeah, that's for sure.
You know, I mean, I read one of your blog posts the other day, and it kind of made me smile because I think you talked about the fear and the kind of what's the word of it? I can't remember what the wording exactly was, but it was like the fear of having your own business, the fear of it failing, the fear of not being successful, and you talked about these highs and lows of thinking, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever done. And then it being the worst thing you ever decided to do.
And everything in one day, and everything in 1 hour.
God.
Exactly, yeah.
I completely empathize with this. This is completely true. And this is something else that, you know, people who want to begin their own business need to know about, because, you know, you need to be incredibly emotionally strong. And actually have people around there to support you as well, because you know, I'd be nothing without my girlfriend. I mean, she's wonderful. And it's just so hard dealing with it day to day. And, you know, for every little confirmation, every little bit of success you get, you then get the opposite. And that's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, completely. Okay, good, good, good. So thanks a lot for telling your story, giving us some insights into how you do business, how you started and everything. So where can people find you?
They can find me at ppenglish.ch.
Okay,
That's my website. I'm also on LinkedIn. You can find me there. Zing, if you're a Zing user. And then obviously then through this video on your website.
Exactly. So we're going to have the links, the link to your website below this video on the website. So everybody can find you there, and if they're in search for training and coaching, consulting in terms of their communication skills in English, presentation, etc., they can certainly find you there. Excellent.
Before we leave, I'd just like to mention a couple of things. You asked me a couple of questions in advance, and I just thought I'd like to share those because I think they're quite valuable things for future entrepreneurs. And one of them was, you asked me 3 important things you have done to get you where you are today. So the first one of those was making the jump, which is incredibly difficult. But, you know, every journey starts with a step.
Yeah.
The next one was working hard. You know, it is hard work and it is difficult. And the next one is really the struggle and the reflection. And this alludes to what we were just talking about. It is difficult. You have moments all the time when you think, this is what am I doing here? But actually they're really beneficial because they cause you to reflect. And then when you reflect, you normally find a new way of doing things that's better. And that's how your business evolves. And then your next question was, what advice do I have for people starting? And that is to commit 100%. So you're in this and you're going to do this. And that's the only way you'll be successful. And then finally to focus on the simple offering. And then to ignore the attraction of money. Because whilst we might get into this to earn money, and that's what every business should do, actually, if you focus on the money, your business isn't successful.
Yeah.
Focus on providing a good service, the right service, and enjoying providing that service, then you end up with a successful business.
I really love that idea. I think it's a very, very good last point you make here. If you entirely focus on providing huge, massive value instead of the amount of money you can potentially earn, I think you're going to be much, much more successful and fulfilled along the way.
Yeah, absolutely, which we're hoping to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Excellent. Right. Thank you so much, Shane. It was fantastic talking to you.
Good. I hope it's useful.
Yeah, very much. So thank you very much for being here today with me. And as I said, people can find you through the link below this video in the show notes. And I hope to talk to you very soon again.
Thank you, Daniel.
Thanks a lot, Shane.
Good for your business.
Thanks a lot. You too. Take care. Bye.